Now we can begin.
Our opening words are by Mary Carr. Who the meek are not. Not the bristle-bearded Igors bent under burlap sacks. Not peasants knee-deep in the rice paddy muck, nor the serfs whose quarter-moon sickles make the wheat fall in waves they don't get to eat. My friend the Franciscan nun says we misread that word meek in the Bible verse that blesses them. To understand the meek, she says, picture a great stallion at full gallop in a meadow who, at his master's voice, seizes up to a stunned but instant halt. So, with the strain of holding that great power in check, the muscles along the arched neck keep eddying, and only the velvet ears prick forward, awaiting the next order. Our opening hymn is number 360, Here We Have Gathered. please remain standing for our unison affirmation, which can be found on the inside of your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So be it.
This is a call to worship by Erica Hewitt. As we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world that ask us to perform, to take up masks, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect. This is a community of compassion and welcoming. You do not have to do anything to earn the love contained within these walls. You do not have to be braver, smarter, stronger, better than you are in this moment to belong with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able, your mind, no matter how busy, your heart, no matter how broken. Bring all that you are and all that you love to this hour together. Come, let us worship together. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ooh, that feels good. Welcome to First Parish in Bedford, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. My name is Lisa Rubin. I am the Director of Religious Education here at First Parish. Our parish minister, Megan Lynes, will be leading today's service. John Gibbons, our senior minister, is officiating at a wedding in Vermont today. A special welcome to our first-time visitors. If you would like to stay in touch with us and learn more about life here at First Parish, please fill out the blue connection card, which you can find in the pews, and drop it into the collection bag later in the service. You may also find blue cards, fill out a blue card. You can find it at the welcome table outside of the common room. Everyone is invited to join us for community hour after the service. You can go through those doors there. You can find the welcome table, actually, on your way there. Let's see, what's coming up?
Haunted house.
That's it! But it can't happen without your help. This is a very big fundraiser for First Parish in Bedford, and everyone should be involved in this. So if you're not involved yet, listen up to things that are still there for you. First of all, today at noon, we need all kinds of strong bodies and able people to be able to help schlep all that haunted house stuff out so that it can start shaping up the place and making it not look quite like this. So please, it's at noon today, and Carl, where is Carl? Carl, wave. That's Carl, he needs you. And also, there are still positions and places that we need help at the haunted house. You could speak to Carl, you could speak with me. Where's B? B, are you here? Right here. There's B. She runs the Crack Cauldron, and she needs your help and goodies. The kids and families run the games, and we need help. Okay, if you want to know more about what is going on, there is, in the back of your order of service, there's an announcement section. So please look at that. And after the service at 11:30, Megan will be up in the bacon room for anyone who would like to discuss and talk about today's service. That's what I have. And now Sharon McDonald has something for Time for All Ages.
I'm Sharon McDonald. I'm the newly appointed church historian. This has been an historic year, celebrating an historic year. 200 years ago, this meeting house was built. Now, we have records of the building. We know how tall the beams were and how much the nails cost. But wouldn't it have been good if they put together letters to the future, talking about their hopes, their dreams, who they were, and somehow sent it through time to us now? Well, it's too late for them, but it's not too late for us. How about if we write, I have a banner. Blank, you see, that you can write your name, a short message, and maybe a handprint for a little one. And then I have, for you who have more words than that to say, I have archival paper that will last at least 50 years. And we can send this 50 years into the future. Well, I'm 68. I probably won't be here 50 years in the future. I'm willing to act as the point person to gather all these archival letters and the banner, but how are we going to get this to the future? If only we had a time capsule. A time capsule. It's steel, solid steel. We have wax to seal it around the top. It says time capsule on the bottom, should there be any question. It's called a Mr. Future time capsule, should you want to Google it. And the Mrs. Future is available, but it's slightly smaller and slightly less expensive. I went for Mr. Future. So after the service in the common room, you just go right through that wall right there. During community hour, I'll have a table and pens and archival paper. I hope that you'll leave a record. It'll be here for the next 3 weeks, so if you need time to think, that's all right. You can do it next week. And in this way, we forge a chain from the past to the present to the future.
Yes, you do. Yep.
That's two. Where's the third? Okay, we didn't have much time for a sound check, so let's just make sure all our components are in order. Hello, this is my voice, Buffy.
Hello, this is my voice.
All right. This is my guitar.
And this is my guitar.
Perfecto. So, hi there. They call me Mr. Future. Mrs. Future is out there in the audience somewhere. Oh. Okay. We are forging a chain of hearts. We're stronger together than we are apart, sharing our struggle, our joy and our pain, link by link, heart to heart, we are forging a chain. We are forging a chain of souls. We're finding our power and shaping our goals, sharing our journey, our lives to reclaim, link by link, soul to soul, we are forging a chain. We are forging a chain of minds. Though each one's unique, they're all of a kind, sharing our stories, rejecting your frames, link by link, mind to mind, we are forging a chain. Bellows of outrage fan the coals, kindling spirits and sparking souls. The hammer of justice strikes the anvil of law, bending the arc of history to our cause. We are not afraid and we are not asleep. We are not your peasants and we're not your sheep. If you try to divide us, you will only unite us. The longer you persist, the stronger we resist. 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 We are forging a chain that's built to last, with hope for the future and strength from the past, sharing a love that can't be contained, link by link, mind to mind, link by link, soul to soul, link by link, heart to heart, hand in hand, link by link, we are forging a chain. We are forging a chain. We are forging a chain, indivisible chain. We are forging a chain.
From so many places and conditions of the Spirit we come, seeking a center for our lives, a sense of wholeness. We make space for so much that's in our hearts this morning. Cancer, power bars, nostrils, tattoos, people who've been married a very long, long time. Quiet our minds, center our spirits, ground our being. Enable us to find that power that already lies within us. Power for love, for hope, for gratitude. May our hearts be open to compassion, our minds open to wisdom, our spirits open to courage and grace, that we might try again the ancient commandment to love our neighbors as ourselves and to know what that means for us right now. In the quiet of this space and sacred time, we have given ourselves here to simply be still. We'll sit for a moment in quiet together. Amen. I've brought a reading this morning by the Reverend Nadia Bowles-Weber. It's from a collection of writings called Some Modern Beatitudes. Nadia Bowles-Weber is a Lutheran pastor serving a church called the House for All Sinners and Saints in Colorado, and they like that their acronym is HFASS, half-ass. John and I loved attending her workshop at a homiletics conference a couple years back. She's a very non-traditional and liberal Christian thinker, and she's covered with tattoos. She would have really liked to go where you all went, Cynthia, and your mom. I like the way she brings traditional texts alive, and so here is her recent version of the Beatitudes. She writes, "Because I like to imagine Jesus here standing among us saying, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are they for whom death is not an abstraction. Blessed are they who have buried their loved ones, for whom tears are as real as an ocean. Blessed are they who have loved enough to know what loss feels like. Blessed are the mothers of the miscarried. Blessed are they who don't have the luxury of taking things for granted anymore. Blessed are they who can't fall apart because they have to keep it together for everyone else. Blessed are the motherless, the alone, the ones from whom so much has been taken. Blessed are those who still aren't over it yet. Blessed are they who laughed again when for so long they thought they never would. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those when no one else notices. The kids who sit alone at middle school lunch tables, the laundry guys at the hospital, the sex workers and the night shift street sweepers. Blessed are the losers and the babies and the parts of ourselves that are so small, the parts of ourselves that don't want to make eye contact with a world that only loves the winners. Blessed are the forgotten. Blessed are the closeted. Blessed are the unemployed, the unimpressive, the underrepresented. Blessed are the teens who have to figure out ways to hide the new cuts on their arms. Blessed are the meek, for you are of heaven. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the wrongly accused, the ones who never catch a break, the ones for whom life is hard, for they are whom Jesus chose to surround himself. With whom Jesus chose to surround himself. Blessed are those without documentation. Blessed are the ones without lobbyists. Blessed are the foster kids and trophy kids and special ed kids and every other kid who just wants to feel safe and loved and often doesn't. Blessed are they who know there has to be more than this because they are right. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the burnt-out social workers and the overworked teachers and the pro bono case takers. Blessed are those who fight the fires as the smoke destroys their lungs. Blessed are the kids who step between the parents as they fight. Blessed are the parents fighting. Blessed are the ones who have received such real grace that they are no longer in the position of ever deciding who the deserving poor are. Blessed is everyone who has ever forgiven me when I didn't deserve it. Blessed are the merciful, for they totally get it. Thomas Merton once wrote, "Our job is to love others without stopping to inquire whether or not they are worthy. That is not our business, and in fact, it is nobody's business. What we are asked to do is love, and this love itself will render both ourselves and our neighbors worthy. Freely we have received, freely may we give. For this is the day we have been given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Our morning's offering will now be gratefully received." Mary Carr's poem, Who the Meek Are Not, has stayed with me since I first read it. To understand the meek, my friend the nun says, picture a great stallion at full gallop in a meadow who, at his master's voice, seizes up to a stunned but instant halt. So, with the strain of holding that great power in check, the muscles along the arched neck keep eddying, and only the velvet ears prick forward, awaiting the next order. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, Jesus declares in his Sermon on the Mount. But it is this poem's version of meekness that reclaims the word meek for me. I witness the ears pricked forward, the sudden awareness of a call, the subsequent redirection of energy. Meekness can be a quiet yet powerful voice running through our veins. What can happen in our lives when we are able to harness the power of a life force that calls us on? You may know that the Beatitudes are 8 blessings recounted in the Sermon on the Mount in the book of Matthew. Each is a proverb-like proclamation without narrative, cryptic, precise, and full of meaning. Each one includes a topic that forms a major biblical theme. The theme of meekness is worth unpacking because it is not the doormat attitude we might at first associate with the word. The Greek word translated meek is prahous, and it refers to mildness, gentleness of spirit or humility. Meekness is humility toward God and toward others. It is having the right or the power to do something, but refraining for the benefit of someone else. In the Jewish and Christian scriptures, the meek are those who have a spirit of gentleness and self-control. They are free from malice and a condescending spirit. The meek may, like the poor, have no resources of their own. The meek do not exploit and express others. They are not given to vengeance and vendettas. They are not violent. They don't try to seize power for their own ends. This does not mean that they are weak or ineffective in life. They may be gentle and humble, but they can and do champion the needs of the weak and the oppressed. I now think of meekness as the perfect blending of 2 seemingly opposite qualities, of insight and innocence, of power and restraint, of mercy and of justice. If we didn't already know, but were asked to guess the kind of people Jesus would pick out for special commendation, writes Frederick Buechner in Whistling in the Dark, we might be tempted to guess one sort or another of a spiritual hero, men and women of impeccable credentials morally, spiritually, humanly, and every which way. If so, we would be wrong. Maybe those aren't the ones he picked out because he felt they didn't need the shot in the arm this commendation would give them. Maybe they're not the ones he picked out because he didn't happen to know any. Be that as it may, it's worth noting the ones he did pick out. The Beatitudes are the blessings Jesus offers upon the meek, those seen as lesser and lowly within society. Those who have little power on earth, he declares, shall gain a place of prominence within heaven. Let's talk about the word blessing for a moment. In many forms of religious life today and in popular culture, we hear about being blessed as if it's a reward, as if good fortune comes to us as just desserts. Much of Christian culture equates blessing with prosperity, with health, with satisfaction, and obvious abundance. While it's tempting to equate these gifts with the favor of God, this notion comes with a corresponding fallacy that says that those who are sick, those who are not prosperous, those whom misfortune has visited, these are just simply not blessed. The prosperity gospel is one form of Christianity I simply don't buy. Those affected by the floods in Puerto Rico or the fires in California or the drought in Syria are not simply out of favor with God. They are just very, very unlucky. They should be shown mercy, not further punishment by humans turning their backs. With the Beatitudes, Jesus utterly disrupts this line of thinking that says that only the lucky are blessed. None of us are better than others. That's just our first principle as Unitarian Universalists. We are all worthy. Being blessed is not a reward for a job well done or for the accident of being born into fortunate circumstances. It is likewise not an accomplishment, an end goal, or a state of completion that allows some to coast along happily and others to suffer. Most often the word blessed, from the Greek makarios, is linked with seeing, with hearing, and with understanding. And although the Greek makarios can be translated either as blessed or as happy, being blessed does not rely solely upon an emotion. Blessed does not depend on our finding or forcing ourselves into any particular mood. To be blessed, therefore, is not a static state. It implies an ability to be in the ongoing process of recognizing, receiving, and responding. To be blessed is to enter into a deep attentiveness where there is room to cultivate acts of mercy, of compassion, of solidarity, and of love. For me, the ultimate meaning of Jesus' life is not his death, but it is his insistence on mercy and compassion, and in the way he turned things upside down. The last shall be first, he said. The children, the poor, the vulnerable, the frail, these are the ones who will lead in the kingdom of heaven, the mysterious realm that we dream about creating, in the world where justice and love are real. The Beatitudes are reminders of how we are all a little lost and downtrodden, weakened by our own greed or pain or vulnerability. So many of us heard a piece of our own story in Nadia Bowles-Weber's reading. I heard myself like 8 times in that. We all need a great calling to pull us up short, remind us that we are loved, and send us on our way with intention. The Austrian Jewish theologian Martin Buber believed we experience this great calling through love of one another in relationships that are mutual, respectful, and where each person in the relationship is seen and accepted as whole. Buber believed that God is experienced through this meeting, dialogue, mutuality, and exchange. This, in an imperfect translation from German, is called what you may have heard of the I-thou relationship. An I-thou relationship with anyone or anything connects us with the holy. And he uses the word God for that, and I sometimes use the word love for that. Buber's theology is centered around the belief in the I-thou relationship, a relationship that stresses the mutual, holistic existence between two beings. He believed that in these moments of deep meeting, we experience one another as our most authentic selves, without any qualifications or objectification of one another. This is the only kind of relationship he believed. This is the only kind of relationship he believed is possible with God, and when we have these moments with one another, we connect in some profound way to that eternal relationship with God. To put it very simply, when we love without judgment or reserve or qualification, even if we can only do that for a moment or a second, when we love, we bring God or love into being in the world. Buber said it this way: existence will remain meaningless for you if you yourself do not penetrate into it with active love, and if you do not, in this way, discover its meaning for yourself. The true meaning of love one's neighbor is not that it is a command from God which we are to fulfill, but that through it and in it we meet God. Love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Lord. That is to say, you think I am far away from you, but in your love for your neighbor you will find me, not in his love for you, but in yours for him. Whoever loves brings God and the world together. Meet the world with the fullness of your being, and you shall meet God." End quote. When I trip over the word God, I just insert the word love. It works for me. You may have words that work for you. And it just eases the whole concept up a little bit. I do know that there is something at work between myself and the other, and it is of us, but it is not us. That's what I feel as love at work, and that's what I feel for all of you. And that's real to me. I believe that as we go about our business, we stumble onto things that require inconvenience, self-sacrifice, even risk. Every day, things, needs, sometimes people land on our doorstep and demand of us that we answer the question, who is my neighbor? How much would our congregation love to have an individual or parent or child stay with us in our carefully prepared sanctuary space? Aren't we just waiting for that? A UU congregation in Meriden, Connecticut just became a sanctuary congregation, and I'm so happy for them and so sad that we need to have places where people can go when they're really not safe from our government chasing people down and treating them poorly. It takes courage and practice and usually the support of others if we are to answer, yes, you are my neighbor. I will come near to you. I will bring a fraction more of love, of wholeness into being through loving you. Many centuries ago, Tetsugen, a follower of Zen in Japan, decided to publish the sutras, the life of the Buddha, in Japanese. At the time, the sutras were still available only in Chinese. To translate and publish these works in Japanese, then, would require a project of great significance, the value of which would be applauded everywhere. The books were to be printed with wood blocks in an edition of 7,000 copies, a tremendous undertaking. Tetsugen began by traveling and collecting donations for this purpose. A few sympathizers would give him 100 pieces of gold, but most of the time he received only small coins. He thanked each donor with equal gratitude. Finally, after 10 long years of begging, Tetsugen had enough money to begin his task. It happened that at that very time, the Uji River overflowed. Famine followed. Tetsugen took the money he had collected to publish the books and gave it away to save the villagers on the river from starving to death. Then he began again his work of collecting the money necessary to produce the sutras. This time it took 7 years before Tetsugen had enough money again to begin his task. But the money was barely collected before an epidemic spread across the country. This time he gave it away in full, what he had collected to help the sick, just like the time before. After 20 more years of begging, he was at last able to publish the sutras in Japanese. The printing blocks that produced the first edition of sutras can still be seen today in the Obaku Monastery in Kyoto. But today, the Japanese tell their children that Tetsugen made 3 sets of sutras, and that the first 2 invisible sets surpass even the last one. Love in action created all 3. A little while back, Krista Tippett, host of the NPR radio broadcast On Being, interviewed John Lewis, our United States Congressman, a Democrat from Alabama, and he's been a congressman since 1986. He was a core leader, one of the big 6 of the civil rights movement, and an advocate of nonviolent protest. He led the push for voting rights and the first Selma March on what became known as Bloody Sunday. He nearly died that day in Selma from injuries suffered at the march. This weekend begins a series of programs and book discussions based on Bedford's One Book, One Read. It's called March. It's a graphic novel, graphic memoir of Representative John Lewis. And I hear that if you are free at 2 p.m., Bedford favorite professor Dan Breen will be offering a lecture outlining the major events and figures of the civil rights movement in the United States over at the library. Blessed are the meek, the scripture says. Here is a little bit of the interview with John Lewis by Krista Tippett. Lewis said, well, long before any sit-in, any march, long before the Freedom Rides or the march from Selma to Montgomery, any organized campaign that took place, we studied. I remember as a student in Nashville, Tennessee, a small group of students every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. would gather in a small Methodist church near Fisk University in downtown Nashville. And we had a teacher by the name of Jim Lawson, a young man who taught us the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. We studied. We studied what Gandhi attempted to do in South Africa, what he accomplished in India. We studied Thoreau and civil disobedience. We studied the great religions of the world, and before we even discussed a possibility of a sit-in, we had role-playing. We had what we called a social drama, and we would act out. There would be black and white young people, students, an interracial group playing the roles of African Americans, or an interracial group playing the roles of white people. And we went through the motion of someone harassing you, calling you names, pulling you out of your seat, pulling your chair from under you, someone kicking you or pretending to spit on you. Sometimes we did pour cold water on someone, never hot, but we went through the motion. This was drama because we wanted people to feel like they were in the actual situation, that this could happen. And we wanted to tell people, whether young men or young women, that if you've been beaten, try to protect the most sensitive part of your body. Roll up and cover your head. And look out for each other. So when the time came, we were ready. We were prepared. Krista Tippett said, I also read somewhere that you were trained, even if someone was attacking you, to look them in the eye, that there was something disarming. That was something disarming for human beings. Representative Lewis, we did go through the motion, the drama of saying that if someone kicked you, spit on you, pulled you off the lunch counter stool, continued to make eye contact, continued to give the impression, yes, you may beat me, but I am human. Be friendly, try to smile, and just stay nonviolent. And during the nonviolent campaign in a city like Nashville and so many other parts of the American South, you never had one incident of someone striking back. There were even people who would say, I cannot go on the sit-ins, I cannot go on the Freedom Ride. I may not be disciplined enough. But we were trained. When we left to go on the Freedom Ride, we were prepared to die for what we believed in. Krista Tippett, in the way I came to understand this, the point of all of this role-playing was not just about being practically prepared. I suspect that some neuroscientist now in the 21st century probably understands what happens in our brains somehow with what you knew about that moment of eye contact and human connection. But you also understood this to be a spiritual confrontation, first within yourselves and then with the world outside. Is that right? You're so right, he said. First of all, you have to grow. It's not just something that is natural. You have to be taught the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. And in the religious sense, in the moral sense, you can say in the bosom of every human being there is a spark of the divine. So you don't have a right as a human to abuse that spark of the divine in your fellow human being. We, from time to time, would discuss if you see someone attacking you, beating you, spitting on you, you have to think of that person years ago. That person was an innocent child, an innocent little baby. And so what happened? Did something go wrong? Did the environment, did someone teach that person to hate, to abuse others? So you try to appeal to the goodness of every human being, and you don't give up. You never give up on anyone. Krista Tippett. And do you feel like even in that moment on the dark day on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, were you able to love those officers who came at you in this sense you're describing? I saw those officers as individuals carrying out an order, And since then, I've had the opportunity to meet some of their sons and daughters, and some of those people. I even had a discussion on one occasion with the Governor Wallace about what happened on that Sunday. It was a very moving moment to me. I cry sometimes, and sometimes I think I cry too much, but they are actually tears of gratitude, tears of appreciation, joy, happiness, of seeing something about the distance we've come and the progress we've made. What the chief did today was so meaningful. He gave you his badge too, Krista Tippett said. Yes, Lewis said. I said to him, I'm not worthy. I wanted to say to him, you don't have to do this, but he did it. It says something about the power of love, the power of nonviolence, that it happened to move us toward a reconciliation. Krista Tippett, I want to push you a little bit because the word love, as you said, it's romantic. Love, as you are talking about it, as you have aspired to live it, is not a way you feel. It's a way of being, right? Yes, Lewis said, it's a way of being. It's a way of action. It's not necessarily passive. It has the capacity, it has the ability to bring peace out of conflict. It has the capacity to stir up things in order to make things right. When we were sitting in, it was love in action. When you were doing all the sit-ins, like at lunch counters at big department stores that had been segregated, right, when we went on the Freedom Ride, it was love in action. The march from Selma to Montgomery was love in action. We do it not simply because it's the right thing to do, but it's love in action, that we love a country, we love a democratic society, and so we have to move our feet. Last week in Washington, Representative John Lewis continued to advocate for nonviolence, as he has done all this time by calling on Congress to tighten up gun laws. He led almost all of the House Democrats down the steps of the Capitol on Wednesday for a brief event to respond to the Las Vegas shooting massacre, asking those gathered, how many more must die? How many more dead bodies will it take to wake up this Congress, Lewis asked, with fellow Democrats standing next to him, along with former Representative Gabby Giffords, who was shot at a constituent event in Tucson in 2011. What will move this Congress to act, he asked. We hold moments of silence and vigils and offer our thoughts and prayers, and it is all a show or placeholder until people forget. He suggested that has allowed a GOP-controlled Congress to roll back gun restrictions. Don't tell me otherwise, he said. I lost colleagues in Mississippi and Alabama to gun violence. We lost Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to a man with a rifle. We lost Senator Robert Kennedy to a man with a handgun, and now another mass shooting. We have seen too many gun deaths, and I am here to say right now, this must stop. It must stop now. In the days and weeks to come, let's all of us pay attention and stay alert to the invitation to speak up for gun control. The truth is that very few of us are actually powerless. Being meek or humble is a desired state because it cultivates inner strength without seeking to overpower or submitting to being overpowered. The world needs more people like John Lewis who will use whatever little they have to do whatever little they can do, organizing, collaborating, agitating, to save the world from the violence that threatens it on every level. If the question is, what does it mean to make a difference, the answer may simply be that we must not allow failure to become more important to us than witness. We feel powerless because the power we do have, we sometimes do not use. My friend and colleague Sarah Gibb Millspaugh writes, religion is as much about faith in humanity as it is about faith in deity. And many of us will find that over and over our faith in humanity gets tested. We are immersed in a culture that's deeply corrupted by selfishness, greed, and oppression-born fear, privilege, and fear. It's all too easy for us to justify the dehumanization, ostracization, suffering, and death of others. It's all too easy for us to devalue some humans' lives and feel somehow like we're still good, upstanding, moral people. Religion at its best, she says, asks us to do better than this, to rise above the selfishness and status-seeking and othering and xenophobia that comes so easily to us. Religion at its best, and our Unitarian Universalist faith, calls us to honor that which is sacred in each person, even those we might hate, even those who we find disgusting. It impels us to accept on faith that there is a sacred spark, a worthy spark, in every person. This can sound mundane, but it is very radical, revolutionary even. Each person sacred, each person worthy. Accepting this on faith changes how we live in this time when so many of us live in fear of dehumanizing political regime. Let us renew our pledge to live out those sacred and human teachings that draw us toward humility, compassion, love, and justice in an ever-widening circle of care. To be humble or meek is not to be passive. It is to be pulled up short, to stand stark still, paying deep attention, like the stallion mid-gallop in the field, muscles rippling in the sun. John Lewis says love in action has the ability to bring peace out of conflict. Love in action has the capacity to stir up things in order to make things right. What is possible for each of us if we harness the power of a life force that calls us on. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn is Faith of the Larger Liberty, number 287. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Amen.